Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Saturday, February 15, 2025. Coming at you live from Borrelli's Taproom in Long Beach. Excited to be here. Big show and big game coming up tonight. USA versus Canada, Four Nations face-off. We are excited to be here. Really appreciate Borrelli's having us here. And a little special guest here, Chris Botta, stepping in for Stefan Rosner. Chris, how you been?
It's a real pleasure to be here. Sean, how you been? All right, buddy?
I've been great. Been great. My name is Sean Cuthbert. Welcome to the show. Before we start off, just want to tell you about our wonderful sponsors, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd and unplug your game at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. We're also proud to be sponsored by Center Station Bar and Grill. Catch every Isles game with great food and drinks at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center all season long. We're also proud to be sponsored by Razor and Kniff, attorneys at law ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com. That is RAISERANDKENNIFF.com for a free consultation. And last but not least, we are proud to be sponsored by Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company and creator of the Diamond Air Blade. Get 10% off at tovihockey.com with promo code HNiNY10. And in about 10-15 minutes, Ethan Sears from the New York Post will be joining us from the Bell Center, where all the magic is happening for the big game tonight. Looking forward to talking to him. And folks, if you're hanging out with us live in the chat and you want to get your questions answered, type in questions brewing followed by your question, and we will get to it at the end of the show. So, with the pleasantries out of the way, it is time to get things started with Experience Points, presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe, where we make our points about the Islanders' experience in the previous week. So, Chris, once again, welcome back. The New York Islanders, since the last show, had that one last game against the Minnesota Wild that Sunday. Rough weekend for the Isles. They go up to Winnipeg, up to Minnesota. Doesn't go well on the heels of a great run for the team, getting themselves back into the playoff mix. Take a little bit of a hit there with those two games, but luckily some other teams that they're kind of fighting with in the wild card race didn't do so well either. They're 4 points out. I think 5 points out of the wild card one spot, so still very much in the mix. What'd you see there, Chris?
I thought going into Winnipeg and Minnesota, that streak, there was a run in 1990 that Eric Hornick has pointed out. It was like came out of nowhere, and I was with the team for that. There were good runs under Trotz a couple of times. There was a great run under Patrick Waugh just last year. But in terms of inspiration, in terms of surprise, in terms of guys coming out of nowhere, not just from the current roster, but coming off other teams' rosters to join the team, it really was a magical run. And I'm not going to let those two losses get in the way of remembering that. And I would also point out that, as you did, just about everybody else lost around them. So it was unfortunate with the back-to-backs. You knew it was going to be a struggle. Two pretty good teams, Minnesota being the second game. But overall, I just deep appreciation for what they were able to do under such duress with all those injuries. Those last two games, I don't want to say you write them off. You can't say they're going to come back to haunt them, because look at all the wins they had before that nobody would have expected. So let's see what happens when they regroup after Four Nations. What did you think of those games?
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. I mean, the run that they went on, I guess the first reaction is what took them so long, right? And now you have to note that they had a plethora of injuries there that they were dealing with the entire season. They're still dealing with them now, hence the makeshift defense that they're working with right now. That came in and really acclimated themselves very well, very quickly. We're starting to see some bumps and bruises a little more lately in the more recent games, but I think that's to be expected when you look at what they got these guys for, which was essentially nothing, right? So I'm with you in the sense that you kind of give them a pass for this weekend. Tough back-to-back. You're playing your starting goalie, Ilya Sorokin, in both games. So you kind of knew that Sunday was going to be rough either way, regardless of what might have happened in Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg was the game they had to try to steal a point or two from, right? And unfortunately, it doesn't go their way. And you have the own goal on Sunday with Tony D'Angelo. And really what happened in that game was they ran out of gas. They get to halfway through the game, they're up 3-1, and then you see the fatigue starts to show.
I thought that's exactly what happened, and that was a shame, but you knew on the back-to-backs. And it's not just your typical back-to-backs. It's back-to-backs with a lot of guys playing a lot more. Boquist went from the press box to playing more than 20 minutes. Is one example. Perunovic, when they were out there trying to tie it up with the goalie pole, you got two guys manning the blue line, doing a great job keeping the puck in, who weren't a thought in anybody's mind 2 weeks previous. So, it's a shame. It feels like a point or two that, going into those final three, I thought they would have signed up for 3 points. They only got 2 points, but not the end of the world. They were playing so well and were on such a high that you would say this Four Nations break maybe came at a bad time, but you can say that with all the injuries they had, these close to 2 weeks, having 2 weeks off without games, and only one guy playing. Big game tonight for Brock. This is a break that this team needed, and they earned it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You hope that some of the guys get a little healthy during this break, even maybe a goalie. That would be nice.
One goalie?
Right, yeah, absolutely. Hogberg was playing great before he went down. He was doing excellent filling in, and unfortunately he goes down. So hopefully we get some updates by the time they come back to the ice where he might be able to come back in, because I just don't think Skarek right now is very trustworthy back there, which is why we saw Sorokin play both games in that back-to-back there. So we'll see what happens with the rest. We'll see what happens with the break. But I guess my question to you here is, after all that's been said right now, what is your opinion on the state of the Islanders right now? Do they have a chance? No, do they have a chance to get in?
That's a pretty broad question, my friend.
Surely. Well, let's talk about the playoff chances here. They're battling with a handful of teams. The Rangers finally got their act together. They're going to be in the mix. You have Detroit there. Ottawa pulled away a little bit, but they're still there. You have Tampa pulling away a little bit. Boston's still there, but the Islanders have a few games in hand on them. How do you like the Islanders' chances, even when you consider the injuries like the Barzell that they have?
So my guess is I'm probably not known from my joyful year of doing the show with you just about every week as being necessarily Mr. Sunshine. But I'm here to bring some sunshine.
Okay.
If you look, and by the way, and let me say this is with Barzell out. This is with possibly Nelson being traded. Like no matter who's wearing the jersey, this is what stands. I see this as there's 2 spots open, the 2 wild card spots. I'm not saying necessarily all 6 teams, 3 and 3 are there, but I think there was a time, Sean, where I thought that Jersey spot might be available, New Jersey spot might be available, and it just feels like that gap was never closed by anybody. So I think those 3 teams. So you got about 6 teams going for 2 spots.
Right, not ideal.
It's not, the number's not ideal.
Right.
But it kind of goes back to what I thought, and I think a lot of people did at the beginning of the season, that this is where they would be. Not how they got here, but where they would be. If you look at those teams, it's not like I can make the case, maybe Rangers if they ever figure it out. But there isn't one of those 6, 7 teams that I would say, oh yeah, they're going to pull ahead.
Right.
And because of that, and because the Islanders seem to be able to find some sort of mojo at times when it's needed, because they have the goaltender, who I would put up against anybody else, maybe tied with the Rangers goalie, what I'm here to say is I think they have an equal chance to get in one of those spots. I don't think they're a favorite. That would be insane to say. But I also don't see them as some sort of massive underdog. So I think it's going to be really fun to see how this plays out. I get it if they were to trade Brock Nelson, and that's a big if. If they were, and they only got picks back or young players back, that would make that mountain even bigger. But I'm not ready at all to say that this team is, they're up against it because of the numbers, but they have as good a shot, in my opinion, as any of those other teams to get one of the 2 spots. How are you seeing it?
Yeah, I'm with you again, agreeing essentially. Look, 6 big games between the end of this break and the trade deadline, right? And 2 of those are against the Rangers. 2 high stakes games. Those are going to be great games to watch. But that's going to be a tough stretch there, and really it's going to determine what Lou Lamoriello is going to do with this team. I know that they're in a position right now where he's absolutely not going to sell. At least I don't think so. He's going to let this team give themselves a chance to get in, right? So I think as far as what Lou might do, we might actually be pushed right up against that deadline before he really pulls the trigger on anything, unless they really crap the bed in those first few games when they come back from the break here. But I agree with you that they have a chance. I mean, listen, prior to that run that they went on, I was ready to write the eulogy on the season. Just say, okay, retool the team, sell who you have to sell, get some prospects, picks, whatever you have to do, and then get the team reset over the summer, right? Now, all of a sudden, they're back in the mix. I'd rather see them win than, you still have the tankers out there. Just get rid of everybody, but get in the playoffs. Get some bonus hockey. You never know what might happen. You have a goalie where you can ride that guy as far as he'll take you, right? So I think that's all possible. But, they've given me hope based on that run that they went on.
There were several moments this season where, I know it's crazy to think of like one game, like why should one game mean so much? But I think of that game in Boston where they blew the 2-goal lead and won in overtime.
Right.
I'm not going to lie to you. We all have our mental drafts of either tweets or what we might say in the podcast.
Yes.
If they had lost that game in regulation, I was pretty close, if not exactly there, to be like, love you, JGP.
Right.
Love you, Nelson. Love you, but see you later. It is time. And to their credit, and the players, of course, don't think that way, but they won those games, so they are here, and that's just a fact. We know Lou's history. We know he's not going to give up on his team if they're not giving up on each other. But you're right; these next 6 games are going to tell a lot. We might know really early on. Dallas at home to start. Not an easy game, but maybe Dallas coming out of Four Nations isn't ready. I'll put my money on a Lou Lamoriello managed and a Patrick Roy coach team in those first couple of games coming out of a break. There's little things like that I look for the advantages of a good culture. Not that Dallas has a bad culture, but looking at that first home game. So I think we'll know a little bit early on.
No doubt about it. So before we wrap up Experience Points presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe, it's time to dole out some experience points. And I'm going to go.
We also take that you could delete points too?
Oh, yeah,
Did
you
I
can take
understand
away.
that?
In fact, that's what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
Now, I know the guy didn't mean it. I know it was an accident.
I hope so.
But the Isles were trying to fight back there in the third period, and unfortunately, just a bad state of a situation there for Tony DeAngelo. Ends up putting the puck in his own net. Obviously, not his intention. Trying to clear the puck away. Goes into the net. I'm going to have to go minus 143 experience points on that one. Okay. What do you got?
And is there an exact science to the numbers? There is.
It is completely arbitrary, Chris. You have as much fun with the numbers as you want.
All right, then I'm going to go plus 144 points to JG Pajot.
Okay.
He's really had a good season. I've not always been his biggest fan or advocate, but he's had a really good season at a good time. I had tweeted a couple weeks ago that I knew for sure from talking to people around the league that he is second to Brock Nelson, not Palmieri, not Lee, not anyone else, that he is a guy who's very much in demand. And our friend, your co-host, Stefan Rosner, just wrote a story, I believe, in the last day or so, also with some real hard facts about teams that are interested in him, and that is a fact. So his rise, I have other guys to give points and take points away from,
please, sure,
but I will give him one more point than you took away from Tony DeAngelo.
All right, that's fair. All right, well, we are going to have to break for Ethan, so that's going to do it for Experience Points presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe. Unplug your game and raise your experience at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play. Food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, Lorcana, and organized play communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd. Unplug your game. Now we will take a break, and on the other side, Ethan Sears of the New York Post will be joining us. We'll be right back.
Fans, there's a new bar in town. Center Station Bar and Grill in Rockville Center is your new home to catch the game, especially the New York Islanders. Whether you're inside keeping cool or enjoying a breeze on the patio, Center Station has wall-to-wall TVs so you won't miss any action. Enjoy delicious eats with weekly specials and wash them down with your favorite bottles, cans, taps, and cocktails served by the great Center Station crew. If your team's not playing, Center Station has a full calendar of live entertainment, including music, comedy, karaoke, trivia, and of course, 2-for-1 Fridays with the best local DJs. You can forget the crowds and host a private event, or keep it close to home and have Center Station cater your next party. So call 516-536-6258 for bookings, or go to centerstationrvc.com to see the menu and browse upcoming events. Center Station is in the heart of Rockville Center at 279A Sunrise Highway and only steps from the train. So hop on board to Center Station Bar and Grill.
When in need of representation, it's not always easy to know where to turn. But whether you've been accused of a crime or need to go to court, Razor and Kniff Attorneys at Law have you covered with over 100 years of combined experience. With offices in Manhattan, Mineola, and Suffolk, Razor and Kniff is an award-winning law firm specializing in criminal defense with additional expertise in business debt settlement, trust and estates, personal injury, and more. At Razor and Kniff, you'll have direct access to your attorney 24/7. Because more attentive service translates to better outcomes. You deserve legal representatives with national recognition and a strong track record of delivering results. And Razor and Kniff are ready to fight for you. Call 212-LAW-1500 or go to razorandkniff.com to schedule a free, no-risk consultation today. That's RAISERANDKENNIFF.com. Razor and Kniff. We win cases because we make your problems our.
The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
Train rolls on here at Hockey Night in New York. It is time for On the Line, presented by Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company. And join us right now from the New York Post, from the Bell Center, where it's all happening, USA versus Canada, Mr. Ethan Sears. Ethan, how you been, bud?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's just start off with the Four Nations face-off. Obviously a little different here. Only 4 teams, not a big event. But how's the buzz up there in Montreal? How's the atmosphere? What are you seeing?
It's fantastic. It feels like Super Bowl, to be honest with you. There's been a buzz around the city. Everybody's excited to say Canada. The games fell out. All the games have been doing really well. Attendance is the quality of play, I'm sure you've seen, has been really high throughout it. They've done a great job of making this feel like a big, and all the players are, they clearly care about this, and it is the best hockey in every sense of the word.
That's great to hear. And what's your opinion on the quality of play so far? Obviously, we've seen a few games now. The big one coming up tonight. You said that the enthusiasm is high from the players, but just what do you have to say about how the games have been so far?
It's been fantastic, really. I thought the Canada-Sweden game was one of the games I've ever seen live, and really all of them have been great. I mean, the Finland-Sweden game this afternoon was fantastic. Really aren't seeing a lot of mistakes for anyone. This is high. All these teams are highly skilled. It's just been fantastic.
Excellent. So moving on, just the anticipation for tonight's game, huge, right? Obviously, it's in Canada's home turf. Maybe just talk about the anticipation and the enthusiasm from everybody, from players on to fans. I mean, this is, I think, the game everybody's been waiting for. Obviously, everybody's hoping that this ends up being the final. But maybe just talk about the energy and the atmosphere going into that.
I mean, it's huge. This is the first time in 9 years that Team Canada have played at a best tournament, and really it's the first time in 11 years that you've seen a strength squad from countries, because that 2016 World Cup of Hockey, Connor McDavid wasn't on Team Canada, Austin Matthews wasn't on Team USA, they were both Team North America. From that end of it, it's huge. I was talking to Sam Bennett yesterday. He said it felt like it's the Game 7 of the Stanley Final did for him winning the Panthers. So that's sort of the bar that's being set by the players here.
Ethan, it's Chris Botta from How Are You? It's been a while. Doing okay?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing great. I got to point out, the New York Post has got you and Molly and Larry Brooks there, which is incredible. And that leads me, because I'm always going to be interested in these type of questions. In terms of the overall media coverage, crowds in the press box, the scene kind of behind the scene, not just ticket sales, but, marketing and that kind of thing. Do you feel that the NHL and the PA and everybody involved is seeing this as a successful event so far?
I think so, yeah. I think, there were some concerns about ticket sales and things like that, and I think what it's going to be in Boston next week. But here, it's been great. The crowd's been great. The marketing has done really well. The players did a great job of selling it and making it feel like a big deal. The media contingent here is huge. It feels like the best comparison I can give. I've covered the Final Four before, and it feels kind of like that with just the way this is being treated. So, they've done a really good job with all that, and everybody's been accessible. And, like I said, the players, the coaches, and everybody have done a great job of kind of selling this event.
And it's great that you're having a fantastic season on the beat and that you're there on the ground for these big games. Granted, just one player on the team that you're on that beat. Of course, that's Brock Nelson. I was wondering if you have gotten any more of a feel for, how things might go, the demand that he's in. Our scouts, our teams, looking at this game, looking at a game like tonight, we know Brock has enough of a body of work that it might seem nuts for teams to wonder how he's going to do in this type of competition. But if you're a GM, you might be saying, well, look, I'm trying to bring this guy in to help me win a Game 7 in a Stanley Cup final. Any sense of the buzz around Brock Nelson and the interest in teams? And I don't even know, usually scouts are in press box for regular season games and playoffs, but I don't know if they are allowing teams there or if they've had to buy tickets. Any sense of that?
It's funny. It was actually just an hour ago. I was looking at the seating chart. I did some teams had people here. The Islanders were actually one of them. The Rangers were another. Winnipeg was another. This is an incomplete list I just gave. But
hey, Winnipeg's there. That's good enough. Now you got a story. Winnipeg's there.
Yeah, but no, there are teams of people here. And, in terms of Brock, that I think everybody knows. There's been a lot of conversation about what we're going to do there. And, it's so unclear right now, whether they agree to an extension or not. It seems like that's what the Islanders are trying to do. And, we'll see how it goes.
So, Ethan, let's keep it on the Islanders now. Let's talk about this team. Chris and I were just chatting about whether or not they have a shot to make the playoffs here. Obviously, they go on that long run. A little bit of a setback last weekend up in the north. Let's get your opinion on it. Did this team show enough during that run where they have it in them to stay in the mix here and perhaps for the third season in a row just sneak into a playoff spot and give some bonus hockey to the fans?
Well, I definitely think it's a possibility. I mean, you look at the state of play right now, they're 4 points out. It's a very simple spot that they've been the last 2 years, as you mentioned. The difference is that there's this kind of question what they're going to do at the trade deadline.
Right.
And, if they end up getting Brock or, even a Kyle Palmieri, then it's about, well, what does this team look like? Is this a situation where you take a step back to take a step forward? Are they, or do you look at a hot trade and, try to preserve this season doing that? Do you, just extend Brock Nelson, stick with the group again and for it this season and on into the future? And, that's just a no question right now. That's going to really sort of dictate how the season goes from March 7th onward.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of what the Islanders might do heading into the trade deadline, I mean, obviously, it's the key is thrown away. It's locked up. You usually don't know what's going on with the Islanders and Lou Lamoriello. But do you get any sense of what they might do? I mean, they're right in that position where they're close enough where you could justify hanging on to guys and going on a run and maybe even add if they're really trying to get in. But then at the same time, when you look at how many teams are involved, you can make an argument where, the little run here before the break was nice, but the best thing for this franchise going forward is to let some guys go and move on. Do you have a sense of what you think they might do?
My best sort of guess is that a lot to ride on whether or not they can sign Brock into an extension. But Lou Lamoriello has not the secret of the fact that he wants to keep him. But if there's no extension signed, if they know Nelson is going to market in the summer, I think it is going to be really, really hard to sell to this fan base in particular that watched John Tavares out the door just a handful of years ago in a sort of similar situation, and you don't know whether or not this team is going to make the playoffs. If they do, it's probably a stretch to say they're a cup contender. I know Lou Lamoriello believes this group. I know he thinks they're capable of making a run. I just think that is a really, really, really hard sell, even for him. But, like you said, with Lou, things can go in any number of directions. You never really know sure. So, we're going to wait and see. But that's my sort of bet right now.
Yeah, that's fair. It's always tough to figure it out with Lou, and of course the Islanders couldn't make it simple, right? They couldn't just lose most of those games, and we kind of already know what's coming. But I guess at least for me and probably most of the fans prefer to have games to watch here going into the end of the season instead of kind of writing off the rest of it, right? But the next question I wanted to ask you was the makeshift defense that they have. Is this enough for this team to maintain this playoff run with D'Angelo coming in and the other two fellows coming in, Boquist and whatnot? Are they good enough to keep this team afloat while they hope guys like Pulock and maybe even Dobson later on come back?
I think the three guys they brought in have all been really impressive so far, and to sort of do that on the fly the way they have has been great. I think they really, really need at least one of the sort of third group right now to back after the break, because those last handful of games, once Scott Mayfield got hurt, that was when I think you started to see some crack. It looks pretty clear right now that Patrick Law doesn't really trust Chalowski, and look at his ice time. I think in that against the Wild right before the break, it was like 230 something. And that, you're basically playing with 5D. I think just really hard to do for a sustained period of time.
Sure.
It seems like Scott Mayfield is the closest person to coming back, and if he is back out break, I think that would really be huge for them.
No doubt, Ethan. Well, listen, I know you got a job to do up there, so best of luck up there. And, hey, enjoy the game. It's going to be a great one.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys.
Enjoy. You got it. Thanks a lot for joining us. That was Ethan Sears, pal of the show. Always does a great job at the New York Post. Chris, are you pumped for this game, sir?
I'm very pumped for this game. Let me, to really drill down on that, I'm not too caught up in who's going to win the Four Nations Cup.
Okay.
Maybe I'll feel differently on Thursday,
Sure.
But I like good hockey, great hockey. I know everybody here. But that's what I'm interested in, right? Like the game this afternoon was great. The games the other day were great.
Right.
And obviously, USA ran away with it a little bit.
Sure.
But I'm not too caught up in driving my wife to the airport today. I heard guys on the NHL Network, and they had the points all screwed up. The guy didn't realize you get 3 points for this. And I'm like, and although I don't think that's great for a guy on NHL Network radio to not really know, I also kind of who cares? I'm interested in the games themselves. And this game tonight, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
The firepower that's out there, to me, the clear-cut, bigger brand names on Canada versus U.S., who now has seemed to have merged as some sort of favorite. It's incredibly exciting. So I'm loving this tournament. I was looking at Boston at one point about maybe going out there for the doubleheader. Didn't work out. Other things got in the way. But I'm all in this tournament on the games. Do I think 10, 15 years from now we're going to necessarily remember who won this one particular tournament like we might the Olympics or even the World Cup of hockey? I'm not too sure about that. But I love these games. If you're going to have an all-star break, this is a good use of it, and I'm glad that the NHL is moving forward with similar competitions.
I've been waiting for best on best for a while, so I'm excited for it too. So we thank Ethan Sears for joining us for On the Line, brought to you by Tovi Hockey. And I'm going to tell you a little more about Tovi Hockey. The innovative hockey technology company is the creator of the 100% solid carbon fiber Diamond Air blade, the only other NHL-approved blade technology with superior feel and increased swing speed due to its perforated design, unparalleled control thanks to the micro grip blade check texture, greater durability courtesy of its patented aerodynamic cross-beam construction, and unparalleled shooting accuracy thanks to its large sweet spot. Tovi Hockey is changing the game by making the next-gen stick of tomorrow available today. Go to tovihockey.com to check out their great selection of sticks, gear, and apparel, and use promo code HNiNY10 for 10% off your order. Tovi Hockey, stronger, faster, superior. We're going to take one more break. We'll be right back.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan.
Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest, and Floored Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook, or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floored Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Hey there, welcome back. We missed you too. Now kick up your feet and settle back in to Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Settle back in to Hockey Night in New York, previewing, pre-gaming USA versus Canada for their hopefully only the first matchup of the four nations face-off. What's on Tap brought to you by Center Station Bar and Grill in Rockville Center. So that's right, Chris. Tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern puck drop, USA versus Canada. You're excited about it. I'm excited about it. What do you think's going to happen? Canada has home ice advantage, but that may not necessarily be good enough for them.
They not only have home ice advantage, but I think it means a lot that this game is in Montreal. And you saw a little bit of that. Have you been to a game in Montreal?
I have.
Yeah. It's different.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
special. It is, I maybe said this on your show a couple of years ago, of all the things I miss in terms of the Islanders experience, working for the team experience, I can honestly say if there's one thing I could do again, it would be to travel with that team, or honestly even without the team, and go to a game in Montreal. It's pretty amazing. And I've noticed watching the Canadiens, Montreal Canadiens this season, and they've been pretty good, a little buzz, a little excitement with Hudson and stuff. Like, there's just a special noise to that building.
Sure.
And that's why, and I am going to bring this back to tonight's game, if you're wondering. I think that Canada is a favorite. If this game was played in Worcester or in Winnipeg or some random other place, I would say it's an even game. Mm-hmm. But I can't wait to hear that buzz. I can't wait to watch the first 10 minutes. I think this is going to be like Hagler-Hearns in that it's going to be especially hot early on, maybe cool off a little bit in the second period. I think it's going to be a 5-3 or 5-4 game. I do wonder about the Canadian goaltending, which is hard to believe that that's a thing now, that the Americans seem to have an advantage. But I consider the Canadians the favorite in this game because of where it is. I'm not going to necessarily have the same prediction on Thursday.
Sure.
But if I was putting money down myself, I would say Canadians. Of course, I want the Americans to win.
Right.
On the other hand, obviously the Americans do have the ability to kind of like shut up the crowd, and we've seen this in hockey all the time. We've seen in the playoffs how having home ice in a big game isn't necessarily been an advantage. So I'll pick Canadians. We'll talk about this some more, but what's your pick and what do you think?
My pick, I'm going to say upset by USA. I think they're going to go up there. Look, that first goal is important, right? Like you just talked about, quieting the crowd, right? If they can do that, I think then the U.S. can kind of have this game play into their hands. And I think the one advantage they might have in front of the crease is the grit, is the hard-nosed hockey, right? And you look no further than the Tkachuk brothers, right? And they showed it against Finland the other day, right? These are guys who can not only score goals, not only put up points, but they bang bodies, they play tough. Not to say that they don't have anybody over there on the Canadian side, but I think that might be the X factor in these games here, where you have those two guys together and just being able to play that hard-nosed hockey on top of the skill that they already bring to the table.
I thought early on in the tournament, the first 2 days, the games in terms of physicality were okay. I would say they were kind of moderate. Today, this afternoon, we saw it between the Swedes and Finns that they really went at it. I don't think there's necessarily nationalistic hatred toward each other, but you could definitely see there were rivalries, especially between certain players. I do wonder tonight, if I'm a general manager of a team, and not just of Brock Nelson's team, but for that matter, the Edmonton Oilers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if you're sitting there, if you're Jeff Jackson, and you see this absolute mayhem that I think is going, if maybe not in the first couple minutes, at some point in this game, it's as exciting as it might be, and those guys love the sport, and Lou loves the sport too.
Right.
But you do wonder if that's the moment where all of a sudden you're thinking, wait a second, what did we agree to? I'm in the middle. I'm trying to get one more game if you're the Oilers to win that Stanley Cup. I'm trying to get Brock Nelson to be either re-signed or to make a run or to be at a prime asset. And now we're just going to have this spectacle going on in about an hour from now in Montreal. Of course, I'm prepared to just love it all and see where the chips fall where they may. But I do wonder if all of a sudden this will take a little bit of a different turn. Like, I can't believe we just, especially maybe Thursday if it comes down to it. It's like a Game 7 because the players, they will not have any limits. You can't turn them off.
Correct.
You can't tell Connor McDavid to slow down or to not make that extra move. So I think that's another subplot that's fun about this.
I don't think there's going to be any holding back tonight.
No.
I think they're going to come out and they're going to start hitting bodies, and it's going to be a tough game. And yeah, I think you're going to have general managers wincing, maybe watching with one eye closed, hoping that nobody gets hurt. But I don't think they're going to hold anything back because I think that rivalry, the pride between nations and all that, I think that's going to be a big thing, and I think that's going to be a hard-nosed game. But let's look at these rosters a little closer, right? The U.S. forwards, right? You got Matthews, Eichel, the Tkachuk brothers, Gensel, JT Miller, Brock Nelson, Chris Kreider from the Rangers side. He hasn't gotten into the game yet, but maybe he'll get into it. I don't think he is, actually. I think Brock's back in again. But you compare that now to the Canadian side. Crosby, McKinnon, my God, Marchand, McCarr, McDavid, Point, Reinhart, Stone. I mean, this is just two bomb squads going against each other, and it's almost unfair that you have McDavid, McKinnon, and Crosby not only on the same team, but you saw it in that first game on the power play a minute in, right? Just the magic they weaved and the skill level that's there. And maybe that's what it is for the Canadians, is maybe having that little advantage on skill to, kind of overcome the United States, I suppose, grittier play. But, I mean, you look down both of those forward groups, and there's a lot of firepower there.
And there's the Crosby factor, right?
Yeah.
This is a guy who's accomplished so much, first ballot Hall of Famer, a couple of Stanley Cups. And this year, he's got, I know this might sound, again, crazy because they're only a couple of points behind the Islanders, but they're not making the playoffs. I'm just going to say that right now.
Sure.
And they're selling. And I don't think they're going to be good next year either, and I think Sidney knows that. So my point is that he's got a enriching life. Don't get me wrong, but this is like the only, in terms of hockey.
No, it's a good point.
This is the only thing on his radar.
Yeah,
and the guys know that. And you saw how he played the other night. You also saw how much it meant to him and his teammates around him. So it feels like, again, I just give them a little bit of an extra. It is funny to think that this could happen all over again on Thursday.
Yeah.
On the other hand, these two teams might not play each other again. So,
right.
There's a lot on the line here, and that's why, to me, it's not who's raising that cup among the 4 teams. It's just like, we saw a great game today. We're going to see a great game tonight.
I agree. And let's look at the defense real quick. The U.S. squad: Faber, Fox, Hannafin, Hughes, McAvoy, Slavin, and Werenski. Another great group of defensemen there.
And mobile.
Yes, very mobile, playing both sides of the puck. Yeah, no, it's very exciting. You look at the Canadian side. Drew Doughty recently back from injury. He's going to be in there. You have Makar. I think I named him under the forwards. I meant to say Marner before. But you got Makar there, Morrissey, Pareko, Teodor's out. Harley's in. Now, this was interesting, right, that they brought Harley in, kind of made an exception for the Canadian squad.
It felt like a rule was being made up, which I didn't see coming. And I think everybody in the spirit of the event is just like looking the other way on it. I don't know why they didn't just have a depth guy.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
I'm confused by that. But, at least it looks like he'll still be able to sit out. It looks like he'll be playing.
Okay, there you go. They have Sanheim there, and of course, former Islander that every fan likes to talk about, Devon Taves, up there playing for Canada, playing on a best-on-best squad. I think for me, it's hard to look at these two defense corps and really say definitively which one is better. I think they're both very strong. They're both going to be big factors in this game. Anything you see there?
Maybe when everybody's at their best, I'd give the Americans just a little bit of an advantage. Again, it comes back to, it is interesting that they're so mobile. I worked with a coach at the Islanders who now is a coach in the league, and who wasn't Peter Laviolette, who said to me, and it's funny, it actually is relevant because of Perunovic, for example. He used to tell me that if you gave me 6 guys, like Scott Perunovic, he'd be happy with that. That he isn't, that this idea that you need any lugs out there or any tough defenders. So that's fun for me to watch. I give the but to go back to your original question, I give the Americans just a slight advantage.
Okay, fair enough. And of course, they have Long Beach's own Charlie McAvoy. Would be nice to see him put up a goal with some points tonight.
Place on the way here.
Yeah, pretty cool. So we are down in Long Beach, where McAvoy is from. So that's great stuff there. So the goaltending on the U.S. side: Hellebuck, Ottinger, and Swayman. Canadian side: Binnington, Hill, and Mutombo. And as you mentioned before, an advantage here. I think this is a clear advantage for the United States, and maybe one that they could exploit tonight.
It is an advantage for them if but all 3 of them don't get to play for each team. But to answer your question,
this is true.
At each spot, there's an advantage. One wild card here, and actually I don't know who's starting for the Canadians. Have they announced yet?
I thought it was Binnington, but I'm not going to say that 100%.
So of all those guys, if anybody is going to have an epic game, play out of his head, at home, in Montreal, that where he's from, but Binnington, he's that guy, you know what I mean? He's a jerk, right? He's
noted jerk.
He's all over the place. But if he's on and he's bringing it, see, I would start him. They didn't ask my opinion, of course, but he does give them. You probably know early on with him. But if he's starting, if he's on, he does give you that ability, maybe even more than any of the American guys, to just have that kind of night that people are talking about for a while. That's all.
Sure. Now, if Binnington is the starter, you see the U.S. maybe trying to get under his skin a little bit there?
Yeah. And the Kachuk brothers would be leading that charge, too. So there's so many subplots within this game.
For sure.
The game itself is something, right? But they're just, unlike, say, a boxing match where it's just mano a mano, in this case, the personalities, the skill, even with a couple of guys being out for injured, and that's unfortunate. There's just so much in this game. Can't wait to get started.
Absolutely. So let's just talk a little bit about. There's a question I actually wanted to ask you, because I look at these two lineups and I think the competition is great. We just went through it, right? And I think it's going to be these are going to be good hockey games. Does this compare to you at all to the 96 U.S. squad, that World Cup team where they won it all there, and you look at the Brian Leaches, the Keith Kachucks, and the Billy Guerins, and I think Tony Amonte was on that squad. But that was a team that was finally able to kind of square up against a really strong Canadian team. Mike Richter in net. Yeah. Do you kind of see parallels here?
Absolutely. That felt like a breakthrough for the Americans at the pro level.
Exactly.
They're putting 80 aside. We all know about the miracle on ice.
Right.
But it's just such a team was so loaded. It's funny to see that picture and see Lou Lamoriello, on the side, and the different guys and Hull's in there, and it's just incredible amount of talent. It actually feels like even next level here. Like you might not have the 500 goal guys. The stats are different. Everything's different. Careers in some cases you might not have guys go on as long as Brett Hull did or as long as Guerin did, with the money being so big. So it's tough to compare how their careers will end.
Sure.
But this is a absolutely loaded American team. We'll come back to this. One other thing I will say is regardless of what happens tonight, I still think it's going to be tough for the Americans to win their next game in Boston.
Sure.
They're not a clear-cut favorite. This is there's going to Finland and Sweden. They cannot wait to be the spoiler.
I
saw
agree.
A little bit of that. Finland fell a little short the other night, but I think in Boston, where I don't think it's going to be it won't be as near the scene, the environment. Maybe on Thursday, but not on Monday. I think those games could be a little tougher, and the European clubs are going to be in there looking to surprise.
I agree with you, and especially coming off the emotional high of this game, then they're going to have to reset quickly and get ready for those games. So I think that's a very good point.
And you talk about a first goal or two making a difference. We've seen how Boston can get pretty quiet. I think it'll be a different crowd than, say, a typical Boston Bruins in that arena, Tuesday night game, or in this case, Monday game. But enjoy this one tonight, because I think Monday is going to be more they got to get through this one.
Yeah, for sure. So real quick, Canada's coming off a 4-3 overtime win. We noted that before. It looked like they were going to run away with in the early going after scoring that first goal, but Sweden settled themselves, got back in the game, and they had a thriller there in overtime. A little different for USA. That one actually starts slow for them. They give up the first goal, then they storm back. Like we said earlier, the Tkachuk brothers take over, 6-1 win. So two completely different experiences here, and I wonder how that could play into the mental game, right? Because the U.S. coasts through one game, Canada has to battle through the other. Does that give maybe Canada a little bit of an advantage because they got a taste of the tougher competition in the game previous?
Again, yes, I do. I think they had a scare. I won't say their scare like it's their only one,
right.
But they had their one again in front of their home fans. And they came out the other side. I do think that's a good experience for them. I think there was also, and the Americans were at the same disadvantage too, right? You have these incredible combinations of players playing together, but they're not experienced, right? So you could see McDavid sometimes having some timing issues with his line mates at times.
Yeah.
So that's there. This is just going to be. Again, there's just so much. It's not even so much that there's at stake, but it's just the talent, the power, the versatility, the different levels out there. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, and I thank the schedule makers for putting USA-Canada prime time on a Saturday. That works out very well.
Probably not an accident.
No, I don't think so. So looking ahead after tonight, you mentioned the games coming up afterwards. Monday, the 17th, Canada versus Finland at 1 p.m. Same day, Sweden versus USA, 8 o'clock that night. We'll see how those factor in to the final standings. They most likely will. We'll see how those go. And then Thursday, the grand finale, 8 o'clock in Boston. Fingers crossed we get a rematch of tonight's game.
Yeah, Canada not getting that third point could lead to perhaps make a difference. And then in the U.S. game, you talked about, so they're up 2-1 after the second. It's all this analysis. We're all thinking the same thing. What's this third period going to be like?
Yeah.
I call up to my son. They said, hey, it's 2-1 going into the third. You got to come down. By the time he comes down, it's 4-1. He's like, what are you talking about? I mean, that was the quick. All you could hear was Washuzin, score.
Right.
So you never know how it's going to change. But, yeah, Monday, it'd be fun, too, because it's a holiday here. Everybody will get to see it. So let's bring it on.
Bring it on. So that will do it for What's on Tap, presented by Center Station Bar and Grill. Catch great food and drinks, live events, and Isles games all season long at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center, and now we move on to Hero of the Week. That's right. That's where we talk about heroics, both on and or off the ice. So, Chris, I'm sure you remember how this goes. I'm going to throw this to you first. Who is your hero of the week?
The season I did the show with you, I was pretty sure Brock Nelson was my hero at least 8 times.
Yes.
And then the guy who probably came in the second amount of times is my hero. It's a weird week, of course, and he's not even playing. Right. But it's Ilya Sorokin for me because as this team goes, it's going to depend on him, no matter what that lineup looks like, no matter what. I'm talking about strictly the games for the rest of the season and in their bid to make the playoffs and compete in the playoffs. It all comes down to Ilya Sorokin. It was always going to be this case, Sean. You know that too, is that even for his struggles, for his lack of Sorokin-ness at times this season, that if they were ever going to go on a run, they couldn't do it without him. So to me, he is the hero of this week and for weeks to come.
Very well said. Moving on to myself, I'm going to go with defenseman Alex Romanov. This guy has been a beast of late. I mean, you just look at the way he's played in the absence of Noah Dobson. This guy has stepped up, really rounding himself into a top-pairing shutdown defenseman, and he's throwing some points in there every now and then, too. A little offense with an assist versus Winnipeg, an assist versus Vegas in the week previous, so he's stepping up big time as needed. Pullock out, Mayfield out. This is kind of like Romanov really stepping into a leadership role in the back end and saying, hey, guys, I got this. I'm going to help take you to the promised land here. At least we hope. And just really quick, he has been munching minutes since those guys have gone down. You want to go through the last couple of games here. 31 minutes, 39 seconds versus Tampa, 23-27 versus Florida, 28-51 versus Vegas, 24-09 versus Winnipeg, and then 27-06 versus Minnesota. I don't think we've seen those kind of ice time numbers since Adrian Aucoin and Kenny Janssen played for the New York Islanders.
He's become so invaluable to this team that something that I would not necessarily have predicted a year or so ago. He's a good player, but now like a big talking point or topic of discussion around the Islanders is like, what's his contract going to look like? I think it was always a feeling of like, well, what stops him because of the points? But now Romanov has made himself so valuable to this team. He's taken up so many minutes. He's added some offense to his game that people are like, wait, now you're going to lock him up too. So good thing the cap is going up, which I know we'll say all the good thing. Every time we think somebody's going to cost more, it's like, yeah, but the cap is going up. So you're going to be hearing that a lot over the next year or two.
Yes, for sure. So those are your heroes of the week, Ilya Sorokin and Alex Romanov. Now, Chris, you've been doing a lot of good work with Joe Buono over there at Isles Fix. How's that going?
It's going really great. It's a lot of fun. Joe, as you know, you've worked with him for a while, and he's a partner of you guys. You're in the newsletter a lot. We just, basically our thing is just simply is if there's news, if there's something to talk about with no set schedule, we do it up and we go for 20 minutes. I think one time we went too long into the 40s. I think it was.
Is that too long?
I think it was.
Not around these parts.
No, for sure. If you're going to call yourself Quick Fix, it's a little too long.
That's fair.
The spirit of it is like, Barzal gets hurt. Let's talk about it. They make a trade. They get Tony DeAngelo. I think it was actually the Hall of Fame episode where Brent was named and we talked about others and ways to go about it. So that wasn't a very quick fix, but otherwise been very enjoyable. It's been nice to engage with Islander fans this year. I try to do some different things through the years. I did your show, which was an amazing experience for me. I did the Hockey Press podcast. So I tried at this stage of my life. I like to try to do some different things. So it's been a lot of fun.
Sounds great. So speaking of that newsletter from Isles Fix, Islanders Country, get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at islesfix.substack.com. And just as Chris was describing, you can catch The Quick Fix with Chris Botta and Joe Buono. So with that out of the way, we now move in to Questions Brewing.
It's time for Questions Brewing. So go ahead, ask us a question.
Ed, what's up, man? How you been?
Hey, I've been here the whole time, and this is the first time you've asked me how I've been. That's nice.
You know, it's like the crescendo of the show. You know, we like to wait to find out. You know, you're doing your job over here, a very good job running the board. Yeah. No Jay to help you out. Are you all right, by the way?
Yeah, there's no. Yeah,
you doing okay?
Yes, I'm all right.
All right. So, Ed, how's the chat looking tonight?
Oh, we're here a little bit.
Wow. Is there enthusiasm? What's going on?
It's
Okay.
a little early on a Saturday night.
I guess
you know?
so. All right.
We have the usual suspects in here. We got
Love that.
Mr. Tom Boyle, DCMR. We got
Okay.
Aisle 72.
Love it.
Well, you know what? We'll start off with Aisle 72, who has a question for
Let's do it.
our long-lost friend, Chris Botta.
Okay.
He asks, for Botta, when are you going to write a tell-all book about your experiences working for the Islanders?
And I missed the beginning because I was checking in with somebody at the Bridgeport game. That's from M. Boyle. No, I heard the question, but who's it from? Who's the question from?
Oh, Aisle 72.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So it's actually, I'll be quick. It's amazing that he's asked that. It's nice that people ask that from time to time. And long story short, there could actually be one. I wouldn't call it a tell-all. I would call it more of a memoir of my experiences with some of the greatest hits. Spano, of course, working with Mike, working with Neil for 40 days. Some of the crazy behind the scenes, not gossipy stuff, things that are well known. Maybe a little bit of a PR manual at the end, not to make that sound boring, it would be fun. That is a possibility in my future as I continue to move into this chapter of my life and try different things. I appreciate the question, and what I would say is that book could come out. So shoot me a note via Twitter, and I'll keep you posted and get you to commit to buy one because that'll help, of course.
A little teaser.
Well,
All
we got to
right.
have you on as a guest, and we'll promote it on the show.
Thank
There you
You
go.
just sit in the third chair.
Thank you.
All right, next up from Jeremy Ford. He says, do you see Crosby finishing the season with the Avalanche?
No.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I think he's committed to life in Pittsburgh, regardless of what happens from here on out. Is it a nice thought for Colorado to go on a Stanley Cup run? Sure, but I don't think that's happening.
I just don't think it's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. You never say never about him maybe playing somewhere else by the end of his career, only because he seems to have enough left that he doesn't have 1 year left. Like he might have 3, he might have 4 years left. So we'll see about that. But as for like this idea that it's going to be traded now, or that guys on other shows have been talking about that a lot, no, I don't see that coming.
Yeah. Nate Siniski asks, predictions for the game tonight, boys. Does Brock get on the score sheet?
Okay, well, we ran through our predictions earlier in the sense that you picked a score. I don't think I gave a score.
I'm going to say 5-4 Canada.
5-4 Canada. Wow. I'm going to go 4-3 United States, and this one takes overtime. I'm actually praying for it, let's be honest.
It's funny. I couldn't go so far as to say whether it's in overtime or not. I'm just going with 5-4 Canada.
That's fair. That's fair. All I want is a good
not
game.
A shootout.
Just give me a great game. No. What do you actually on that real quick? What do you think of the? Oh, you have a point about that.
Well, on my points deducted, it's anybody, and I don't play, right? I respect Nate McKinnon's opinion. But 10 minutes overtime is the way to go.
Let's do it.
For the guys, and so I believe it was Nathan McKinnon who said something like, well, no, it's unfair. What I would say to I understand where he's coming from.
Sure.
And I'm not looking for guys to get injured playing that 8th minute on a Tuesday night in game 37. Mm-hmm. But to that, I would say, that's on the coach. And that's on the players, too.
Sure.
So as the 5 minutes go into the 6th or 7th, if you're the coach, you have to start thinking about that. Okay, if it's a 10-minute overtime now, I got to play more guys. I can't play Nate 6 of those 10 minutes, for example. I don't see why we can't go to 10 minutes. And like everything, the coaches coach the heck out of these things. Sometimes they drain the fun out of them. Mm-hmm. But I would say that the argument for not going 10 isn't about how you're going to wear guys out. It's that you're going to have to use some other guys. And you're going to have to think about those minutes and be strategic and maybe win it in the 8th or 9th minute. But it would be absolutely thrilling. And I wish the league would give it a shot. But I know it needs player association sign off too. And it doesn't appear to be heading in their way. So I was going to deduct points for any player in the NHL who's anti 10-minute overtime because I'm not a shootout fan.
There you go. So minus 587 points for
that's exactly what I meant.
For any player who doesn't want to play the extended overtime. I love it. If I was being greedy, I'd love to see 4-on-4 over the 3-on-3. But look, if all it takes is getting the 3-on-3, I'm fine with it, but I'm done with the shootout. I don't like the shootout. I hate settling games that way. I think it's a silly way to look at the standings, a silly way to look at a record for a team. I think do it on the ice. Do it hockey.
Draws are better.
I
Or
back
tie. Ties are
back
better.
up my.
I don't even do ties.
I don't even like to give you an idea of how much I'll have to speak for myself. Don't like the shootout. A lot of times on the ESPN Plus, I'll like, hey, Detroit's playing Washington. They're in the third period. It's a big game for the Islanders, right? In terms of where those points might go. Detroit playing Ottawa, let's say. I'll watch the overtime. Thrilling most of the time.
Sure.
When it goes to the shootout, I move on to the next game.
Right.
Like I'm not interested in the shootout, especially if other teams are playing it.
Right. It was fun at first. It was different. It was a little exciting, but now I just don't like them settling hockey games that way. Back to questions.
Yeah, back to questions. All right. Ludiculous asks,
Okay.
Does the U.S. ride Hellebuck? Hellebuck all the way.
I mean, I think so.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Short of them just like really,
Yeah.
camping out tonight or feeling, The one of the good things also about this, we talked about the physicality, is that it's at most 4 games with a lot
Right.
of space
Yes.
between games.
Right.
So, it's the idea of a guy can get hurt in practice, so it feels like that's fair. I do think they probably would ride him because, if he plays great tonight, the only reason you wouldn't play somebody is if you just don't need the points and you've moved on. If for some reason you've got all your points you need and you've moved on to the final, then you maybe you set him for the game there.
Sure.
But other than that, if he's playing so good, you don't want to cool him off by sitting him out.
Right. Agreed.
Tom Boyle asks, do you see Barzal returning before the regular season ends?
From what it sounds like, I don't think that's what's happening. Now, there's no official word. Nobody said really when it's going to happen. We know he's out indefinitely. I would lean towards that not happening.
I'll say that he does. And whether, of course, if they're out of the race, it would be wise to
Maybe shut him
not
down.
play him.
Yeah.
But if they're hanging in there and there's 2 or 3 or 6 games left and he could play. So right now, you're literally just throwing stuff in the wind, right? We have no idea.
Correct.
The team's not saying anything.
Right.
So our speculation.
We're not going to be in the surgery room.
Yeah, you got the doctors who do
Right.
the thing. I will say, some of those doctors, when they saw the play, they seem to kind of nail down what it is, even though the Islanders haven't gotten specific about a kneecap or anything. But I'm just in the spirit of the thing, knowing how much Barzal wants to come back in, I'm going to say he'll play a game before the end of the regular season.
Okay, fair enough. And I believe the correct terminology is operating room. Ed, what do you got?
Sure, operating room, yeah. DTMR asks, when do they resume practicing?
Right off the bat, right? Pretty much once it's over, I would think, if not sooner.
I'm sorry to say I haven't looked up. I would think it's even possible that guy's not in the.
Right, yeah.
Is that it starts earlier. It actually would have been a good question for Ethan because he would have the schedule.
Yeah.
Or maybe the Islanders send it out on Sunday or Monday to them. But I think it's almost like it's going to be like another camp for the guys coming back.
Okay.
They'll have ice. It's not like, hey, you show up Friday and you play Sunday. I would think you're going to start hearing about guys being back at it earlier.
Okay.
I think we talked a bit before on the Islanders' playoff chances, but Tom Boyle wants to know, did you see the Islanders making the playoffs and going on a run? I assume a run is making it out of the first round.
Well, the first step is getting in there, right? And we covered that a lot already. As far as going on a run, maybe if they get Barzal back, like Chris, seems to think he might come back, that increases their chances. Look, here's the deal. If they get in, they're playing one of the top teams in the conference, right? They're really either playing Washington or one of Florida or maybe Toronto. Now, if it's Toronto, I think anybody's got a shot. So that certainly could go the Islanders' way. But look, this has been as old as time, right? As far if you have the goaltending, you can ride a goaltender all the way through to the end, and the Islanders have that goalie. And if the guys in front of him are playing well enough, then sure, they could. Surprise, upset in the first round and see how far he could take them. But I'm certainly not going to sit here and make a prediction that the Islanders are going on any kind of run. I just want to see them get in first. They got a shot. 6 games between now and the deadline. Let's see what they do there first.
I agree with everything you said. If I was going to be totally blunt about it, I will say, they have a good shot of making the playoffs. I don't see them making a run. I don't see them winning a round right now.
Okay.
If it goes to overtime and Canada lines up McDavid, McKinnon, and McCarr, who would you counter with the U.S.?
Okay.
You got your roster back out, or did you throw that card
Oh,
out?
no, the card is here. I'm going to start with the Tkachuk brothers and Austin Matthews.
So no defenseman?
That's a good point. That's right. It's 3-on-3, not 4-on-4. All right, I'm gonna back that up. You know what? I'm gonna go with Charlie McAvoy on D and the Tkachuk brothers to start.
Go
Yeah.
with that as well.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah, I think this guy was talking about what you were talking about before.
Okay.
Good questions here, and
4 on-
different people. I like.
4-on-4 for 5 minutes, and then 3-on-3 for 5 minutes.
I don't know if the league would go for something like that. The staggering
I don't
of
think
the
they'd want to stop.
right. Exactly. I think it's just one or the other. That's why I think if the league ever does go to 10-minute overtime, I think we're just going to see 3-on-3. And like I said, if that's what it takes to get an extended overtime, I'll take it. I prefer it representing hockey a little more with 4-on-4, but if you got to do 3-on-3, and let's face it, the 3-on-3 is pretty exciting. Now, over the years, we've seen how they've adapted a little bit. You see them kind of retreating back over the red line
There's
and
been
regrouping.
some talk about having some sort
Right.
of no regroup, no tag out
Right.
rule. I don't know when that's coming or if that's going to come, but
Yeah.
it is something they have talked about at the GM's meetings.
Yeah. So I don't think they'd split it up. It would just be 10 minutes of 3-on-3, most likely.
And I think with that, that's all we got.
That's it for questions, Bruin.
Yeah, we're not inquisitive tonight.
That's okay.
Everyone's
Listen,
looking forward to this
big game coming up.
Yeah, everyone's
well,
getting ready.
Chris, was there anything else you wanted to talk about there? You had some other points to make. I see
The
that.
other things on my note, stick taps, I guess I'll call it, to the Matt
Sure.
Martin Foundation.
Yes.
I know we're going to try to raise
Yes.
some money for them today with the raffle. Hopefully we let everybody know about the raffles. I got some, and hopefully everybody else will join us. But big credit to any player. Andrews League gets involved in charities, others. Like, to have your own foundation, it's like not easy. Like, there's work involved, there's commitment involved. So big respect to Matt, who's always been a terrific player and person. So that, and then the only other thing is that I feel like there was another important game tonight, and that was the Bridgeport Islanders game at home. They had a game late this afternoon that just ended a little while ago.
Okay.
And my point being is that when there are other league events, in this case, an All-Star game, or in this case, the Four Nations, what happens is you might send some guys out, but you're looking at your own kids. And we know that Bridgeport is beat up and you're injured.
Right.
But this was an opportunity for the Dufours, for Matthew Maggio, who I have heard some good things about over the last couple of weeks. For anybody, for Isaiah George, who turned 21 today, I believe, to show how he's doing back there. What I do know is they lost at home 5-0. So it was kind of. So
That sounds about right.
Yeah, if it would have been at the beginning of the show, I might have been like, it's worth keeping an eye on this because they have to know Lou's watching and Chris Lambrello's watching. But in the end, it does. They're just so thin. They're really thin on talent compared to other teams. So that is a trouble spot. But the point is with these trades coming up, 5-0 loss aside, with the trade deadline coming up, it is another thing to ask themselves: if we trade Brock, if we do this, and we're not getting people back, who would we call up? Are we going to give Maggio a look? Are we going to give DeFore a look? Who I'm not here. I hear some good things about Maggio and his energy and his ability. I'm not hearing that so much about DeFore. Obviously, they've called up guys with some success this year. They've had some good contributions, nevertheless. But I thought that was worth watching. But I did, during the last break, I checked, and it was a 5-0 fight.
Now, since we do have an extra minute or two, let's keep it there. I mean, what's going on over there in Bridgeport, first of all? And we were asked this question, I believe, either a week ago or two. How important is it for your farm team to at least have some kind of success for their development, trying to get up into the top ranks, right? Because you have confidence as an issue, you have all that stuff to think about. Is this hurting the development of the Islanders system with having such a team that's struggling so much?
So there's a lot there. What we do know from history, not just Islanders history, but even Lou Lamoriello's history, there were years when the Devils were a juggernaut. Their farm team, whether it be in Albany or somewhere else.
The River Rats?
Yeah, they were often not good.
Yeah.
What you'd like to have is certainly competitive. You'd like to have some veterans, and they do have some guys there like Terry who've been helpful.
Right.
But the combination of the Islanders' thin professional roster, not counting Cole Eyes, I mean, not counting Danny Nelson, of course, but the guys at the pro level, them being thin. And then on top of that, you have these injuries. We know how thin they are because we're raving, rightfully so, about Boquist, about Perunovic, about Tony D'Angelo. They had to get those guys because they weren't in the farm system. So, like, I can't sit here and say, oh, it's no big deal, right? But I don't get too caught up. If they're a couple games under 500, if they're competitive, if the guys are developing, that's fine. But this year and the last couple of years has been so bad that it's not positive. Like, you know, this is definitely, in the end, William DeFore has to figure it out himself. And I think most GMs would tell you that. But is it helpful to just constantly, you see the Bridgeport Islanders Twitter, like that person's going to heaven when this is all over. They have to sit there and go, and I just checked it, and sure enough, 1-0, 2-0. It is a bad scene. It has to be depressing around there. I know working at the NHL level, how it can beat you down, the players, the staff, everything else. So that is bad, and they need to fix it. They're not going to fix it this week. It would have to be for next season. So long-winded answer. Not the end of the world if you're not making the AHL playoffs, but you need to be better than they have.
And yeah, they're not just losing, Chris. They are losing bad. So I am surprised this actually didn't come up during the question segment here, so I'm going to ask you instead. We talked a little about it with Ethan. What do you ultimately think the Islanders are going to do between now and the trade deadline?
I don't know because I don't know how those 6 games are going to go.
Right, of course.
What we do know is that they have 6 games and they have more than 48 hours between the completion of that 6th game and when Lou has to finalize his trade and get his paperwork into NHL headquarters. So he has 2.5 days. He's got 2 full days to finalize Brock Nelson and Ben Hankinson, his agent, on a contract, for example, if that's what he wants to do.
Right.
If they decide that they just can't come to terms on it, he's got plenty of time to make that trade. So I honestly don't know what that's not a cop-out because of those 6 games, because we know they are still in it. I saw what Arthur Staple wrote in his piece, and I appreciate him going out on the limb saying, in the end, Lou Lamoriello is a realist, and he knows he has to make that trade. I personally, for what it's worth, and it ain't worth anything, what I think, but to me, it's an absolute no-brainer to trade Brock Nelson because there is so much interest in him from multiple teams, including, yes, the rumored Minnesota and Winnipeg. Bid those 2 teams at the very least, and others, against him. They can watch this guy tonight at 8 o'clock and be like, he could be on my team, and all I got to do is give up 2 high draft picks and maybe a prospect. Teams will do that. The Islanders need to do this, in my opinion. But what is Lou going to do? I couldn't. If the Islanders win 4 of these 6 coming out of the break, I don't think they're trading Brock Nelson.
I don't think they are either. Now, you say they should trade Brock Nelson. Is that regardless of a contract or not? Meaning, do you think, are you okay with them signing Brock Nelson, or do you think they shouldn't even bother doing that?
I wouldn't, because I think that contract is going to be a minimum of 3 years. I think there's a good chance it could be. If I'm Brock and his agent right now, and I have Lou up against this, my point is I feel like Brock means more to Lou Lamoriello and the Islanders than he might in July to someone else. We've seen we're already hearing about how the Carolina trade, how Rantanen's value actually might go down a little bit because he hasn't been as good early on. So this is a team. We talked about Bridgeport. We've talked about how thin they are. They have one really good prospect in Yzerman and one pretty good prospect in Danny Nelson. Brock Nelson is my favorite player in my post-Islanders retirement. So I've been gone 15, 16 years. He is my favorite player of that entire group. That includes all the guys that you love and got to watch play in conference finals and have playoff series. He's my favorite player. I would trade him for a first-round pick, a second or third-round pick, and one young player, and I believe they can get there.
I get it. There is a very practical argument to be made for moving Brock Nelson. I'm a big fan of his, too.
Practical
but if you're looking...
is the key word, but in the heart...
Right. Right, and if you're looking forward, if you're looking at the future of the franchise, it may end up being the best decision. We'll find out if that is Lou Lamoriello's decision.
Brock Nelson will be 34 around the third or fourth game of next season.
Yeah,
34.
that is certainly something to keep in your mind. So, folks, that'll do it for Questions Brewing. Now, a little more pleasantries here. I want to plug our Patreon. Patreon.com/HockeyNightNY for exclusive content featuring Q&As, columns, videos behind the scenes, merch and partner discounts, and even an invitation to hang with us at Floored Media in Rockville Center, where we shoot and air the show live. It's a great way to support the show, so definitely check us out there. Once again, Patreon.com/HockeyNightNY. And now I want to turn it to Borrelli's here in Long Beach. Hey, Borrelli's, how we doing out there, folks? Can you hear us?
They're eating.
They are eating diligently, but we got a packed house, and we got a lot of people here waiting for USA versus Canada. We are excited for that. We want to thank everybody who's been hanging out with us live in the chat. So with that out of the way, we can wrap this show up. So first and foremost, a big thanks to this gentleman right here, Mr. Chris Botta, for filling in. Stefan, little R&R, getting away, and Chris Botta came up in the clutch here to help us out, so thank you so much for joining us here.
Everybody. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it.
Did a great job. Thank you so much. Also, a big thanks to Ethan Sears of the New York Post for finding 15 minutes to step away from the crowd and call us up there, from up there at the Bell Center. USA-Canada is about to get started in just under 15 minutes. Also want to thank our wonderful sponsors, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Find out how to unplug your game at mainstboardgamecafe.com. Also, a big thanks to Center Station Bar and Grill. Head on down to 279A Sunrise Highway for Oz games, live music, karaoke, comedy shows, and more. Also, a big thanks to Razor and Kniff, attorneys at law. Nobody likes going to court, but if you have to, call 212-LAW 1500 for a free consultation. And last but certainly not least, a big thanks to Tovey Hockey, creators of the Diamond Air Blade. Go to toveyhockey.com to check out their great products and use promo code HNiNY10 for 10% off. And folks, if you don't do it already, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the show on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, anywhere you get podcasts. We do a weekly show, typically Sunday nights at 8 o'clock, covering the New York Islanders, so check it on out. You can also check out the website at HockeyNightNY.com. Chris Botta, where can they find you out there?
Oh, I'm on Twitter and at Chris Botta NHL. You haven't asked me that in a while, so I'm slow. And obviously on the Isles Fix podcast, Joe's away for a little bit, but I imagine we'll probably have a few quick fixes in the coming weeks leading up to the trade deadline.
Absolutely, so be sure to check that out. You can follow myself on Twitter at Shawnee Hockey. You can follow the show on all social media platforms at Hockey Night NY. Ed, you doing all right there, bud?
Yeah, don't look for me. I won't give you my...
He's a very private person. He doesn't want to be found. Don't look for Eddie.
Don't come for me.
He's just here to work on the show. So, once again, we want to thank Borrelli's Taproom here in Long Beach for having us, having a great time here. Looking forward to a great game. Yeah, let's hear it. Let's go. Borrelli's Taproom. You guys having a good time out there? You ready for this game or what? 8-0 USA? Yeah, maybe. Probably not. But it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a good game. Thanks to everybody for coming out. We got a packed house here. I've been Sean Cuthbert for Chris Botta, for Edzo over here. We've been Hockey Night in New York. We'll see you next time.